Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. Today, we are speaking with Renee Vidor. Renee is the founder of the Winner Circle community. She's a coach, mentor, speaker, and the author of Measuring Up: How to Win in a World of Comparison. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am blessed to be here.
Outstanding. Before we get into the conversation, just take a couple of minutes. Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. My name is Renee Vidor. Like you mentioned, I am an author, coach, and speaker, but more importantly, I'm very passionate about empowering people to be able to live out their full potential. And what that looks like for me is the fact that I didn't for so long. I'm somebody who came from basically losing my identity for a long time. I'm a mother now of two teens. I have a husband. We live in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm excited to be here because I know that you bring out the best in leadership.
Folks, today we will be speaking about taking control over comparison. And I couldn't have thought of a better person to actually address this issue than Renee. Renee, before we started, I had selected you because of your book. I had selected you because of your passion. I had selected you because you're a woman of faith and you live by what you speak. So tell us, what is comparison in a leader's world?
Wow, that's a great question. I believe that every single person is a comparaholic. And if you think about what is a comparaholic, it means that at some point in your life, you are allowing comparison to take control over you. So, as a leader, what does that look like? It takes many different forms. Sometimes we're taking control by listening right now. We're thinking, ooh, you know what? His podcast is so much better than mine. Or maybe we're thinking, she looks better than I do, or vice versa. Comparison is something that when we give it roots in our life and we allow it to have control as a leader, then what happens is our focus is no longer on the goal. We lose focus of everything important and we go inward. So comparison can seriously be a detriment, but I don't believe it's all bad. I believe that we can actually use it to our benefit as well.
And I wholeheartedly believe that. As you were talking, I recall, and folks know I don't mind telling on myself. And I spent a lot of time on a platform, a lot of energy, a lot of effort into creating a what we call personal brand, right, on leadership. And I saw a colleague of mine, they had posted, "Hey, look what this platform did for me." And just like you said, immediately something pricked me. Like, wow, they haven't been here for but a couple of seconds. You've been on here for a minute, and this is what happened. So, that you say aholics, right? Because it's true. There's so many opportunities for that to come up in your life. What happened to me was that I said, hold up now. Hold up now. Are you on God's time or are you on your time? And
Mm.
then, you hit the brakes real quick and say, all right, check yourself, because if that's not what God has for you, that's not what God has for you. You got to be happy with that and look forward to that God has for you. So hey, I
Mm.
confess,
So
here I
good.
go. This happens even to me. So, having said that, what power does comparison have on our lives?
I like the fact that you are willing to be vulnerable and authentic because what comparison likes to do is put masks all over us, or I should say, rather, we like to put masks on ourselves and cover up any vulnerability because we don't want the true us to be shown because we're either embarrassed or fearful or we're worried about what other people are going to think about us. And that's a power that we don't want to give it. We want to make sure that we're taking power and that even though we are always, like I said, comparison will always be here. We'll always be somewhat of a comparaholic because that's the world we live in. And it's even part of our nature. We just use it in the wrong way. But that power, if we harness it and we take it back, we can do what you did, and we can actually use it for our benefit and realize there's a reason that I'm here. And if I'm allowing that power to go out in the wrong direction, I'm not going to be able to give and do what I'm called to do. So I actually used something, and you went along very similarly to this win method that I believe God gave me that's been working for me for many years now. But I'd be happy to share that with you if that's something for the audience to be helpful. Okay. So the WIN method is WIN. It's an acronym. You can utilize this anytime you want to, not even just for comparison, just a little tip there. But the W, weigh the cost. And just like you did, Enrique, you were like, hey, wait a minute, hold up here. What's it going to cost me if that thought continues? Think of the cost. For instance, it might be, I'm going to lose my focus and I'm going to be negative. I'm going to be looking in the wrong direction. It could be the cost for some people in a different situation. It could be your health. Maybe you're going to do something that's not going to be healthy. There's many costs. I won't go into all of them. Next, once you weigh your cost and you realize it's not worth it to give control over to comparison, next is the I. That I is innovate your identity. That may sound strange, like, ooh, what's innovating your identity? It's not creating your own. It's learning who God actually created you to be in the first place and knowing who that person is. And just like you said, Enrique, like that's not who God created me to be. He had me in this lane because this is what he has for me. Somebody else, that's their identity. So figuring out who are you? Who are you created to be? Taking off the masks, becoming authentic, living in that person. Now, what's cool about that identity is that is what you get to compare to. So no longer worrying about comparing to your past or comparing to other people. You actually get to compare it to who God created you to be. So now go to your N, navigate your journey. When you're struggling, when comparison comes in, that thought, do exactly what Enrique did. Literally capture that thought, look at it, think, what do I need to do right now in this moment to move forward and to regain control so that comparison doesn't get a deeper root in my life? As a leader, that is so important. We don't want to have that root to grow into something ugly. So we squelch it right then. Navigating your journey might mean that you have to take some time off from social media or looking at certain platforms. It might mean that you need to change some of the people that you're hanging around, because we are the 5 people we hang around with most, right? There are several different ways to navigate your journey. It's going to be different for each person, but think of that win method every time that comparison tries to prick you and give you that icky feeling that none of us like to have.
I really love that win method, and amazing that it actually came through the process. But that took a lot of not authenticity. It took a lot of awareness
Yes.
to say, hold up, okay, all right, so you're upset about this or whatever, but you can't be covetous. You can't be, hateful. You can't. So once you remove all those little things, you start to realize that you should be glad for this person instead of upset that you're not in their position. And the beauty of the win in actuality in my life was that a month later, that same platform did give me a an accolade over my lane. And you see, so what I learned through that process was that if you are a believer that God controls everything and you allow him to, then you'll see his goodness. When you don't, then you might not see it, right? So, well, and when you come to that as a leader, right? How can I identify as a leader, identify if I'm suffering from comparison?
Wow, that is that self-awareness, right? There are a few different ways that I personally am self-identifying. I don't believe that everybody's at the point of that awareness. And not because they can't be, but because we're not trained to be oftentimes as leaders. Cultivating that awareness would be the first skill I would say to develop. And in order to do that, it is capturing your thoughts. It's making sure that every time that you bring something in, you analyze it and you go deeper and you think, why? Why am I feeling that way? What inside of me is a need that is not being filled? Or what is there cultivating inside that maybe there's other things going on and I need to fill that need in the correct way. And as a believer, I mean, I speak to people who are believers and who are not, but as a believer, I know that if I'm not in direct connect with the Holy Spirit and with my God, then I'm going to have a lot of needs that need to be met. And so my self-awareness goes down and my comparisonitis goes up. So that is something, is that self-awareness and God awareness, knowing who you were created to be. Another thing that comes to mind is, in order to be more aware of that within yourself, it's noticing that generosity and that gratitude. Just like you said, Enrique, when we are feeling negative towards somebody else, that's not who we were created to be. That's not our identity. We're actually here, if we're a believer, as the body of Christ, and we should be helping each other. We should be thinking great thoughts. We should be willing to, at any point in time, give a hand to each person. And if we're not feeling that, then that's a sign that we need to go in and do a little bit of self-work.
Yeah, I was just thinking envy led a great angel
Mm.
get tossed to the ground, right? And if that was the catalyst for that being to lose their footing and get cast to the ground, what do you think would happen to us if we get into that mode? And as leaders, there's one thing to be aware enough for ourselves, and we should always be that person that emulates what we want to see. But there are others, right? That we have people under us. There are teams under us. There's groups, divisions, countries under us. So what can leaders do to get their people to see the benefit of eliminating comparison?
I believe that what you just exemplified earlier is that leadership role. The more that we are authentic and we're willing to share our fallibility, that we relate with people, I believe that every single person is a leader of something, of somebody. All of us, whether we are in a position that we consider leadership or not, we are leading somebody or something. So we need to make sure that we are willing to be imperfect. I always say be perfectly imperfect, because you are. Why would you put on a mask and say that you're not? Because then you're going to lead others to believe that they're supposed to measure up to you. And honestly, I don't want anyone to look at me and measure up, because if they are, gosh, they're not measuring up to their full standard. They're measuring up to my standard, and my standard is totally not theirs. It is not good. It is not for them. So making sure that we're honest about that, and we're never putting ourselves on a pedestal, or even other people on a pedestal of which to be the standard for our people who are following us.
Yeah, I saw a quote, and it wasn't just exactly like this, but I kind of paraphrasing. If you compare yourself to one thing, yes, you are.
Ooh, that's good.
And so you have to be careful, because a lot of times we take that stance off of what we see in a snapshot, and we don't get the full story of what that person is going through. If you was to dig into my life this week, you would not want to compare. You don't, right? Because personally, there are a lot of things going on. Like I said, God's in control, but sometimes those things go out of whack. But if you look at me digitally, oh boy, you want to be that guy, right?
You got
So
it together, right?
yeah, you gotta be that guy. So you have to be careful when you fall into these opportunities to be comparing, because you don't know And sometimes and oftentimes you don't want to be compared to that person at that particular time. So be aware that it is a trap. So speaking about the challenges of comparison and getting through using your win method or some type of version of that to get you over that edge into better pastures. What results have you seen in leaders that have stopped comparing?
I want to make sure that I'm not picking on semantics, but just to be clear, I don't believe that we ever will stop comparing. I believe that we're going to be able to use it appropriately. So whenever we try to stop, we're actually in cognitive dissonance. And if we are thinking, okay, I got to stop, but yet we can't and we can't, then there's a disconnect. So I do not use the word stop comparing in my verbiage, and it's fine if other people do, but just wanted to be upfront about that. When, to answer your question, I believe that as long as we are living out who we're created to be, then we're going to be able to morph into more of that person. We're never going to be completely that person, but we want to be who God created us to be. We want all that. He has good plans for us. I mean, He has literally put us here for a purpose. And so there is something within us that is just desiring to be that. And like you mentioned, I mean, there's outside forces, there's an enemy that doesn't want that for us. And therefore, we're going to be forcing against that all the time. So if we can take control over comparison, we're going to be able to become more of that person, which means we are going to be a greater leader. We are going to be someone that's a force to be reckoned with. We're going to be more aware. We're going to know who we are created to be and be able to do what we're designed to do. And that's going to help us run our race to win. And that's where we want to be. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I'm seeing where you're going and I'm thinking, man, the more that we take control over comparison, the more that we are going to be that leader that we are so desiring to be able to be.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes we use words for the results that we want to see, right? And if we could stop it, that'd be great, right? That'd be great. But it's true, as you have mentioned earlier, right? This is a thing that we deal with on a daily basis. Taking control is the right wording for that. So thank you for that. And I hope that those listening, if you've had some challenges in taking control over any area of your life, right? We're talking about comparison today. It could be anything that you start seeking ways to be able to do that for your benefit. And if you are a leader, for the benefit also of those that you are leading. So, Renee, you wrote a book. I'm going to make sure to have that link as part of the show notes and a video for folks to get a hold of it. But what do you have coming up? And how can folks get a hold of you if they want you to help them start taking control of comparison?
Yes, thank you for allowing for me to share. Absolutely. You're welcome to get my book at any places books are sold, Measuring Up How to Win in a World of Comparison. A couple of the ways that I like to help people when they're looking for help in how to use comparison to their benefit and to their detriment is I offer one-on-one coaching. I also have a community called the Winner Circle. That particular community is for faith-based people who are looking to make progress in their life personally, professionally, and in their walk with the Lord. And I also have coming up early November for women a rest retreat. I find that oftentimes we are comparing more when we are depleted and when we don't know how to cultivate rest in our daily lives. So there are limited spots available for that, but you can reach out anywhere: LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I'm happy to be reached and I'd love to speak with anybody.
Outstanding. Well, folks, we're going to have all that information as part of the show notes and video so you can get a hold of Renee and her services. Thank you so much for sharing your day and the subject matter, which I thought that you would, and you did knock it out of the park. Folks, if you have been listening and this particular topic has been of a benefit to you, make sure to connect with Renee. Make sure to subscribe and let us know how it impacted your life. Today's episode is sponsored by Fantail Services and SupaPass, which are powering our website and app, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, and Hawchester London. And if you've enjoyed the episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment. We're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like featured on the podcast or want to sponsor our show, we'd love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.